So let's quickly review what we built in the last video and talk about how to extend this to an actual mathematical calculator. So I'm going to hit play on my project, and here's my build. And what we built was a word calculator where you could add a word over here. We could say hello, and over here we could say another word. And then whenever we hit add, it would combine the two words above, okay? And the problem arose whenever we tried to do a mathematical operation, when we tried to do 5 plus 10, right? The expectation was, oh, it'll be 15. But whenever we actually added them and said it was 5, 1, 0. So what it was actually doing was taking this as a word and not really a number, and this as a word and not really a number, and it was adding them together up here. So in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to go over different types of data, which was presented in the reading, but I'm just going to kind of quickly go over it, and also how to convert from one type of data to another. In this case, we have two strings that are being added together, and we want to convert these to integers or doubles or another number type, okay? Let's get into all of that. I'm going to go ahead and stop this from running, hop back into my app, and I'm going to use a playground to teach this because I find playgrounds to be a pretty great way to just sort of sketch out ideas and talk about some basic programming principles. Playgrounds are also used in our textbook, and you can find those in there. So I'm going to go File, New, Playground. And remember, a playground is just basically a blank file that we can run. I'm going to just save this as data types and conversions. And I'm going to delete everything that's in there just because I want it nice and clean. Okay. So let's go ahead and start by talking about data types. All right. So Swift works off of a system called type inference, which you read a little bit about, where it infers, meaning it kind of takes in a bunch of data and then guesses what type a different variable or constant is. All right. So let's write a constant called name, and it's going to be equal to my name. Okay. Let's write a variable, and you should know how to write all of these things, but we can go over it again, called age, and let's have it equal to an age. We'll say 22. Okay. And let's have a variable called, we'll say is outside, and it'll be equal to false. And lastly, let's write a variable called, let's do something with a decimal place. What's something that has a decimal place in it? Let's do favorite number equals, we'll do 3.114. Okay. So we just declared a constant and 3 variables. Again, you can read about those, but basically a constant is a value that doesn't change. Variables do change through your programming. I'm going to show you a little trick. Hold down Option or Alt, and your mouse will turn into a little crosshair. Whenever it turns into a little crosshair, you can highlight. So I'm just moving my mouse around, and it's highlighting different things. And these different things, it's going to pull up the quick help whenever I click. So I'm holding down Alt or Option, depending on your keyboard. Let's click the one that says Name. It opens up this little dialog box, and it says let name : string, and here's where it was declared. What does this mean? Well, this is telling us this is a string, right? And we've talked about strings before, but a string is basically a series of characters. It's things you see on your keyboard. So this is a string, this is a string, this is a string, as long as it's between 2 quotes, right? A string could also be a series of words, but as long as they're between 2 quotes, it's a string. Let's hold down this Alt option and click age. That's an integer, okay? So an integer is a number, doesn't have quotes around it. Notice it's not this. If I did this and click it, what's it going to say? Put these quotes around 22.
It's
It's going to say string, right? Because it now thinks it's a string. So this is type inference. It's taking whatever value we gave the variable or the constant, and it's inferring, right, inference, it's inferring what the type is. All right, so that's an integer. What about this one? Do you know what this one is?
That's a bool.
Yep, a bool or a boolean. No, you were right with boolean. Bool is the shortened version of it, which is true or false. A bool just has two values, true or false. Doesn't have quotes, remember? If I put quotes around it, what would it be?
A string.
A string. All right, and this last one has a decimal place. Well, an integer is a whole number. You might know that from math class. This one is a double. And a double just means it has decimal places. Okay? So type inference is a way that the computer infers, that Swift infers what our variables and constants are. Okay? Hopping back to our project really quick, going through what it does. Remember, we have our outlets right here. So we have an outlet called word A, which is a UI text field. We have an outlet called word B, which is a text field. And we have an outlet called C, or word C, which is a label. All right, so you remember how those are all connected. And then let's look at this function called button tapped. We have a constant called grabbed word A, and it's equal to word A dot text. What do you think grabbed word A actually is? Like if I did the option and clicked it. You may not know, right?
Right.
Because this like isn't telling me anything. Well, we could find out by just doing that little option and clicking, and it's going to say it's a string. It's technically a string optional, but we'll get into that in a future class. But it's a string. Why is it a string? Because this word A, if I hold option and click that, is a string. So word A dot text is a string, and so it infers this is a string. What about word B? What's word B going to be?
A string.
A string. What about word C? What's word C going to be?
A string.
A string. Because we're combining word A and word B together. Word C is where we calculate those two. And then we display them as a piece of text. Everything's hunky-dory and easy to work with right now, right? All of this is strings. Everything is strings in here.
Why don't we have to put quotes around word A dot text?
So if I do this, what does that mean? What's the value of this now?
Isn't it string?
It's still a string, yeah. It's now equal to literally this, word A dot text. Let's give this a little try. Let's write a word in here and a word in here and hit add. Word A dot text, because it thinks this is what it's inserting. So no matter what I put over here, it's going to be word A dot text. See what's happening?
Yes.
So we don't put it in quotes because what we're actually doing is we're grabbing the property. We're grabbing this value, which if I click this, it'll actually tell me. It'll say, this is the text that's displayed by the text field. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool. Let's hop back to the playground. So the problem is that we're adding two strings together. And what happens whenever we add two strings together?
It just puts them together.
It just slides them side by side, right? It appends something onto the end of it, right? It'll add something else onto here. What we want to do is actually perform a mathematical operation. So for example, if I do age plus equals 30, whenever I run that, it's going to be equal to 52. Age minus equals 10, it's going to be equal to 42, right? Because this does it line by line. So that's what we want. We want to be able to actually perform proper math. And to do that, we have to either have an integer or a double, right? So this is an integer, this is a double. So what can we do? We need to convert a string to either an integer or a double. How are we going to do that? So we've been using print, right? We've been using this in our playgrounds. We hit play. At the bottom of the screen, it'll say Cameron because it's printing it. Do you know what this is called? What this type of thing is called?
No.
This is, if I click it, a function. That's what the word func means right here. A function is basically an action that's performed, okay? So there's an action called print, and a function is set up like this. It's structured like this. And you're going to learn about functions next chapter. But they're set up like this. We have the function name, followed by parentheses, followed by what are called parameters or arguments, and then a closed parentheses. Basically, this would be the word print. And then whatever we put in here is what's going to print. So right now it's printing name, but we could print name plus blah, blah, or something like that. And whenever we run it, it's going to print name plus that. So anything between those two parentheses is what's going to get printed. So we've been using that function in the textbook. I'm going to show you another function. Every one of these variable types, these data types that we've talked about, string, bool, integer, double, has its own function. Let's declare a new string called, I'll just call it number string. It'll be equal to 55. Okay. Let's hit play. Let's look at the right-hand side of the screen. See where it says 55? And it's in quotes. So we have number string. I'm not going to print it. Instead, I'm going to convert it using a function. I'm going to write int, parentheses, number string. Let's hit play. This time we get 55 without quotes. So what's happening there?
We wrote a function to convert it from a string to an integer.
Yeah, exactly. So we wrote a function that converts 55 to an integer. What if we did this? What do you think is going to output over here on the side? Because integers are whole numbers, right?
Doesn't it round?
Let's see.
Oh.
What does this mean?
It means it didn't work.
Yep, so nil is like nothing. There's no value there. It doesn't work unless it follows the format exactly, and that's really important for you to remember. So let's change this from int. What's the one that represents decimal place numbers?
Double.
To double. Notice I'm using a capital letter here, by the way. Hit play. Now we get our 55.7. What if we had a bunch of letters in here? What do you think is going to happen?
Nil?
Yep. Nil. Because it can't convert those. It doesn't understand, how do I make D a number or F a number? So what we need to do is convert our strings into either doubles or integers, depending on what we want the user to use, right? What do we want the user to do? Do we want the user to be able to use decimal points or not? So we have to decide that. What do you want to do? You want to let the user use decimal places or not?
I do.
Okay. So right now we have this guy let grabbed word A, and let's hold down Option and click it. Remember, it's a string. All right, let's convert this to a double, and let's do it the right way. So we're going to click here. I'm going to write the word double, parentheses, parentheses, and it's going to give us an error. Do you remember down here on line 34? Right there we go. What does this mean?
if there's nothing there to say blank.
Yeah, we need to do the same thing here. It doesn't trust us that there's going to be text in here. So let's do space, question mark, and let's give it a value it can use. We can just put 0.0. All right, it's a double, so I'm just putting the point there just to remind myself. And that works. Now we're going to get an error on another line. Don't worry about it. What else do we need to convert to a double?
Grab word B.
All right, let's do the same structure. Double, question mark, 0.0. Okay. Now what do we need to do?
We probably should change blank to say 0.0.
So let's think about this. What's the error say? It says type string to be expected, argument type double. So we have these. Let's just delete these and see what happens. You can delete the parentheses too. Let's just give that a try and see if that gives us an error or if that works. So what's happening is it's giving us that same error that we had before. So let's wrap this, and you're right, let's do this, and we'll do 0.0. Or we actually want to write out 0.0 this time. I'll explain why in a second. So no quotes. And that fixed that part of it. So what does this mean? Let combined word C equals grabbed word A or 0.0. Why do you think we're using this and not the one in quotes?
Because it needs to change.
It's already a double, right? So if I click this, this is already a double. So this is a double, this is a double, and we're saying either use this value, or if there's no value, use 0.0. Either use this value, or if there's no value, use 0.0. But they need to match. So remember, this one's a string, and this one's a string. This one's a string, and this one's a string. This one's a double, and this one's a double. Is that making sense? So these are doubles. If I click it. And now this is a double as well. So it's inferred, and now this has become a double. All right, our last thing. Cannot assign value of double to type string. So we can't display it. That's our last step. We're not able to display it. How would we get this to display? What is this wanting? This word C.text. What does it want this to be?
A string.
A string. So how would we convert it back to a string?
Do we say string? Do we make a function, write a function for it?
Yeah. So let's write. So tell me what I'm writing. What am I typing?
String, and then you're putting combined word C in parentheses.
You want to see if it works?
Yeah.
Let's hit play. Let's write 5. Let's write 5. Hit add. 10.0. 50. 55. It's working. Victory, right? Big moment. So we've written the basic function of the calculator. So let's talk about what you need to do for the assignment this week. You can check the Blackboard page and the instructions are on there. But basically, you're going to be adding more buttons. So we're going to have a subtraction button, a division button, a multiply button. Okay? And you're going to be using this code, but thinking about how you're going to need to change it whenever you're not adding two things together, but whenever you're subtracting them or dividing them. And then there's a lot of stretch goals as well and things that you can check out. One of the things I'd like to point you to is right now, whenever we run this, I'm just using my actual keyboard. Like I click this and I'm just typing with my keyboard. Command K, this is what a phone user would see, right? How can I change this? This is one of your stretch goals to only show numbers. Okay? Here's a hint. Select the text fields, and it's going to be somewhere in this inspector. Somewhere in here. All right, so build your calculator, do as many stretch goals as you can, try your hardest, and submit it.